Well, welcome to another episode of the Present Fathers podcast. With me today is a very special guest. This is Robert Burnham, the one and only. He's my grandfather. I've known him my entire life. He is a local legend in the Grand Rapids community of, of Michigan. And very excited to chat with him today. Bob, thank you for joining me. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, just
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So my grandfather is turning 90 next month. When's your birthday again?
April 9th.
Yep, coming up April 9th. We're getting the whole family together. He's got a very large family. We Burnhams tend to be pretty prolific. So for better or worse, some people say better, some people say worse. And some of my earliest memories as a kid were spending time with my grandfather. So I grew up in Florida, and every year it was kind of a pilgrimage for me to go up to Michigan and go to our beautiful lake house, go see my grandfather, and go see all of our family up there. We have aunts and uncles and a bunch of other families. So, Bob, you taught me how to play tennis. You were one of the first people to teach me how to read. I didn't have my dad around, so you were one of the biggest father figures in my life. So thank you for being there and for taking that time with me. It's tough. You founded your own business. We can talk about that a little bit. And you still work, right? You're still
Right. Yeah.
still you're the president of Burnham & Co. Is that your position?
Well, yeah, basically I read more now than when I was in law school. And I enjoy reading. I try to read everything published in the free world, And with all the changes going on in the investment world, whether it's quantum physics or artificial intelligence or whatever it is, there's just a lot of stuff going on. So it's fascinating. It's as long as I enjoy doing what I'm doing, then I'd like to continue doing it. And I feel sorry for some people that retire and don't find anything to do. They play golf all day, maybe, that's fun. Or they go traveling and so on, that's fun. But I think you've got to have a purpose. And I think my purpose is to do something for others in this fashion. And if we all have the attitude that, we're really going to be happy when we're doing something for other people. I think that's what really makes us happy. And so that's kind of one of the things that motivates me, is that I want to keep doing that and helping others. And a lot of our clients are institutions who create scholarships for kids and things like that. So it filters down into a group of people who hopefully appreciate what you're doing,
I agree. So you're an amazing and pretty unusual person. I don't know any other 89-year-olds that continue to not only be the president of a company, but read like a research analyst in their 20s. What do you think is different about you than your typical 80-year-old who has decided, whether because they're not physically able to or because they're just not interested in giving back to the world and making it their purpose to make the world a better place? Was it the way you grew up? Was it your mom? What led you to have this drive, this powerful desire to keep giving back and make the world a better place?
My grandmother used to say that you're never really going to be happy in life unless you're doing something for somebody else. I don't know where she picked that up, but that's what she told me early on. I remember that, and I think that that's true. I think that when you're really going to be happiest if you're helping others or doing other people. If you're self-absorbed and you can't wait to get that pair of Gucci loafers or that, that brand new car, I think that's not good. That works for some people, and God bless them for it. But I think if you're really going to be happy in life, you've got to be doing something for somebody else.
So tell me a little bit about your grandmother. I didn't have the opportunity to meet her. What was she like? What kind of stories did she tell you?
Well, she basically was a very, very generous, kind person. She listened well, and she was always there when you needed her. And if you were someone that went into her home and said, "Gee, I like that ceramic bunny over there," well, she'd give it to you, because things didn't mean that much to her. The only thing that really meant anything to her was to be around her family. And the older I get, the more I realize that stuff really doesn't matter. She's, and my mom told me, said, it doesn't matter what kind of a house you live in or what kind of car you drive or what kind of clothes you wear. The only thing in life that really matters is how you treat other people. Now, if you think about that, that's a little combination of Jesus and common sense and kindness,
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way, if you look at those things and they are meaningful to you and they help to drive your life, I think those are good things. Am I a little greedy? Well, I don't know. Maybe I am too, because I work hard, but I don't know that that's greed. I think it's just a work ethic.
I agree. So what was her name, and do you have any special stories you can remember when you were a boy of spending time with her?
Her name was Isabel Amanda Wright. Her maiden name was McGowan. She was from Ireland. But she just was a kind soul, and she died at a relatively early age of 63 of cancer. So I didn't, when I was a little boy, sometimes you don't pay that much attention to your grandparents.
Yeah.
But I did pay attention to her, and because you only get one of those, and she was gone when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So your mother was an amazing woman, Laverne. Let's talk about her a little bit. Her work in the hospital. I have memories of her. I was lucky enough to spend some time with her as a boy.
Oh, she adored you. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I adored her. She had this very cute thing she would do, and she may have done this with you as well. She would have a jar with some money in it. And when I would leave, she would say, "Oh, this is dirty money. I don't want this anymore. Here, you take this money." And so I'd be over the moon. I said, "I get $1. I don't care if it's dirty or not." She was very funny about that.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, she was a special lady, and she was in charge of the children in the pediatric department of Blodgett Hospital for many, many years. And she would monitor things and arrange and organize things for all the children and so forth. And what's interesting is when she died, I looked in her closet, and she had a big box in there. It was a good-sized box, and it was filled with all kinds of thank you notes and cards, mostly from the parents of the kids who were there. Because when they were there, she treated all those kids the same, just like they were her own. And so it's interesting. Some of the parents, she said, that came up there had greasy old overalls on and so on. And she knew they didn't have much money. And so every kid that went home had a little book or a teddy bear or a doll or something that she bought out of her own $75 a week.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a beautiful spirit of giving back.
Yeah.
So is that where some of your desire to be generous came from, was from your mom?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did. And a lot of the doctors came up to her and said, I'm having trouble with my wife. And we were this or that. Do you think I ought to take her on a vacation? And they'd ask her for advice, this little gray-haired lady in the peds department. So I always got a kick out of that. I talked to many, many doctors who thought she was just a cat's pajamas. She was a nice lady. And she fit that role just fine. I'm glad she had that opportunity to do that.
Yeah. And now you were an only child like me, right? It was just you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was your dad around, or what was the story with that?
He died of a myocardial infarction. He had a heart attack when I was in the 7th grade. So I really, was without a dad most of the time.
Yeah.
So my mom was it. She was both mom and dad to me. So, yeah, she was a nice lady, and she did a nice job for other people. And, she always said, you're not really going to be happy in your life unless you're doing something for other people.
That's a theme in the family.
Yeah,
I love that.
It seems to be. Yeah, it seems to be.
Yep, and it's definitely passed down to me. It took me a while. I think in my 20s and 30s, I was more interested in personal development. I wanted to get in really good shape, set up my career and all that.
Yeah, that's natural, yeah.
Yeah, and I think as I've gotten older, the desire to give back and to have that opportunity to help other people has definitely grown.
Yeah, and if you want to know the difference, when I grew up in the early 40s, the war was going on, and people didn't have much,
Yeah.
You could buy a beautiful home in East Grand Rapids where I live for $10,000-$15,000. A beautiful home.
That must have been nice.
Yeah, but I remember as a kid, I never locked my bike. We never locked our house. We never locked our cars. Life was different then. It was quieter in the 50s, and it was a time when we were more personal with each other. Every Saturday morning, I got on my bike and I'd go over to Walt's house and then over to Jerry's house, and then Jerry would go to Jimmy's house, and we'd get a group together to play baseball. And no phones, you didn't call somebody on the phone. You went to get them with your bike.
Yeah.
So that was a lot different than what the kids do today, certainly. But it was an interesting time, and you had a lot of friends, and you didn't spend a lot of time on something that was distracting from friendship. In other words, you didn't have a TV in your house, you didn't have a computer, and you didn't have a cell phone. And I think all those things are marvelous technological advances, but I really wonder how much of an advance they are with people skills and with friendships and things like that. So I think it might be detracting. A lot of kids, I don't know that they've got true friendships like we used to have back in the 50s, Maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like it's a distraction with all the technology.
Yeah, I agree. I think distraction is the theme, for so many of our lives, because there are so many exciting, interesting things going on. You can have your own podcast.
Yeah, right.
You can
Right.
learn so much about the world. You can make friends on social media, but it's a different kind of friendship. I think when you meet someone online, it's beautiful, and you do interact with someone in a great way, but it's not the same as knocking on their door and going and playing baseball with them.
Yeah. And I think as I've grown over the years, too, I realize that geography can be quite cruel as your kids and your grandchildren move all over the country and so on. You miss them, and I know that you grow them up to be independent people, and so they can live on their own, and all that's nice, but deep down, you really want to see them quite often. You don't want a new sweater, you want to see your kids and grandchildren. So, that part of it all. I don't know. I feel as though there's, back in Thomas Jefferson's day, as we were discussing, about 80% of the people lived on farms. Mm-hmm. And, their boy grew up and he moved down, got married, and he had built a house on the farm somewhere down the road a ways. And now people go to California and all over the world. I remember down at the cottage one day, we had a party on the beach, and this one lady was saying something about her children, and I said, I feel bad because I've only got 2 of my 5 children in Grand Rapids, and one of them's in New York, one's in Florida, one's in California. And she said, I know exactly what you mean. My husband and I have 2 children. One of them is an electrical engineer, and he works in Munich, Germany, and the other one married a Chinese national, and they live in Hong Kong. And that shut me right up.
Oh, man. Yeah. I'll bet they miss their kids like crazy.
Oh,
That's
my
tough.
gosh. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think that it's important for every father to take time with their children and to observe, is this kid going to be an engineer? Is he going to be a good athlete? And you don't want to push him in the wrong directions, but you want to open up a lot of doors to see where they might possibly go. And so I think that that's a mandated responsibility of parents, is to closely monitor their children and see what their interests are, see where they're going. What can you do to help them? What can you do to encourage them? What can you do to give them confidence? Because without that support, I think a lot of kids would be a little bit, restless and without direction.
I think you're exactly right. So you have some very successful kids. My aunts and uncles are wonderful people. You really have a formula that's worked well. talk to me a little bit about what you think you did that went really well as a father. So in terms of supporting, let's use Heidi as an example. She's a successful entrepreneur, businesswoman. She is a Grande Dame, knighted in the French army. Pretty unusual story that she's had. What do you think you were able to do to give her that spark and help her be successful that other fathers could learn from?
Well, first of all, you have to be there. You have to be there for them and be around. And I think that's extremely important. That's the start. And then, as I say, you have to observe and play with them and work with them and to give them all the confidence that they can have. I've always given the kids lots of books. Now, a lot of the kids today, they're on their computer and cell phone. They don't read as much as they should, at least I think so. So I think that was part of it too, is just being there for them and working with them, taking the time with them, showing them that you're interested, that you love them, and that you're interested in helping them do what they can do to be the best person they can be. I always kind of had a little phrase for them, always do your best, and then always do the right thing, and then always show other people that you care. Don't just talk about it. Show people, So those are the kind of things that I just tried to work with them on, and like any other father, we played ball together and did a lot of stuff together, and that's why I bought the cottage. Some of my friends said you ought to join Kent Country Club or Cascade Country Club, and so on. I'd go out there with some clients and friends and maybe meet them at noon and have some lunch at a country club and then play 9 holes and come in and have a beer and so forth and talk about the game a little bit and then go out and play another 9. By that time, it was 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. And so I decided that I want a cottage, a place for our family to gather and be together rather than have me off on the golf course someplace.
Sorry to all the golfers out there for knocking on you.
Yeah, golfers.
That's right.
Buy a cottage.
That's right, yeah. I like it. So you've mentioned books quite a bit. Talk to me. You're on your phone a decent amount. You're looking at stock quotes, you're researching, you're reading about companies. What is special and unique about a book that I can't get from just reading an article on my phone, for example? What do you think is that special magic?
That's a good question, Dustin. I don't know exactly how to answer that, except that with a book, you can time your own reading. You can. It's in your hands, and it's something that you can. You are forced to read and study and look at very carefully. And I just think a book has got a lot of information in it that you can't get elsewhere. For the most part. I know there's Google, and we can find out all kinds of stuff from Google, and I know that there's lots of interesting programs, very worthwhile on television and so forth. But something about reading that kind of just sets it apart as a skill set to understand and learn a lot of new things. Just one book, whatever it may be, can contain all kinds of information that may influence your life. Some of it's just interesting, and some of it's humorous and so on. But lots of good books out there, other than the classics and books about self-help, books about what you should eat, all kinds of things like that you can learn from books.
Can you tell me about a couple of special books from your childhood that really influenced you? Can you think of one when you were, say, 12 or 15 that you thought, wow, this really changed my life?
Wow, I'm not sure I can name one, but I do know one. There was one book in particular that I, even as late as a couple of 3 years ago, I wanted to talk to the president of Disney about, and that is The Adventures of the Teeny Weenies. It's about these little tiny people living in the woods, and they'd take a matchbox that they found and 4 buttons and make a card out of it, and then on top of that they could put a strawberry or something, which they'd cut up and share with all the, interesting. It just was fascinating to me, and I thought it would make a great movie, and I still am in the position where I'd like to see somebody make a movie about the Teenage. I think the kids would just go crazy over it, and it would be really funny.
Okay, cool.
And then you read some of the books that your teacher, in high school teachers give you for summer, and they did that with us in the grade school too. They asked us to read books and over the summer, and then kind of report some of those books back in English class and things like that. So I got an early start. I have to praise the teachers at East High School for that. They were very, very good, and they really encouraged that reading early on.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and it is funny. It's the act of reading sometimes that's more important than what you're actually getting out of the book. That really changes your mind.
Yeah, it focuses you. You've got something in your hands. Reading is just tremendously important, I think.
Yeah, and harder to encourage young kids, especially, to do when there's exciting, stimulating tablets and television and other things on. So, even when your kids were growing up, there were a lot of other distractions and challenges.
Sure.
So aside from just giving them books, what did you do to encourage them to read as well?
Well, you buy them books for Christmas and so forth, and this is a Christmas present. My dad gave it to me, so I better read it. So I don't know what went through their mind, but I'm pretty sure they read most all the books that I've given them. Even now, to this day, I give them books for Christmas. Other things too, of course, but I always find a spot for a book or two in there. Recently, I approached the head librarian of Grand Rapids, and I told her about a little idea that I had, and she was all for it. She said it was wonderful, and she's ready, willing, and able to have a staff there to prepare to meet with these kids. I said, well, if we can get some school buses and fill them with a lot of inner city kids and invite some parents, of course, to come along as well, bring them down to the library and have the staff there and approach the kids and talk to them and so on. If the kid's interested in computers, well, you go over to this section here, and these books are all on computers. So I'm interested in being a veterinarian. Okay, well, here's a bunch of animals. So, and I thought that might make some sense. And then some people have discouraged me on it. They say, well, some schools have their own libraries, and some people might possibly object to it. I don't know what they could object to it for, but it is what it is. And but that was just an idea that I had that I thought would help to promote reading among kids who normally might not have books in their house.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point there. We try to give back and help our communities, and often it's not easy. There are systems in place and people that might want to have a different direction they want to take it. So yeah. I know for me personally, when I've been the most successful giving back, it's usually something that I was able to find and really directly influence myself. Because it's tough if everyone has different opinions on how to give back and how to be helpful. And if it's not exactly their system, you might be stymied by that. So it's a real challenge. Can you, I know you've had some success in the past with giving back and with helping your local community. Can you give me a couple of examples where you were successful and where you're able to creatively give back and help the local community?
Well, one thing that stands out is that Senator Arthur Vandenberg was from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and after World War II, President Harry Truman depended a lot on this one man to start NATO and the Marshall Plan and some other things to create a peaceful world. He was a very, very smart man. And Grand Rapids really hadn't, they had Vandenberg Plaza over on one of the streets. But other than that, there wasn't really much. So I got President Ford, who had been a friend of mine early on. I helped him when he was in Congress, and I called Fred Meyer of the Meyer chain of grocery stores and so on, and we got some people together, and we built a beautiful statue of Arthur Vandenberg right in the center of town, and so that was fun doing something like that. And I've been involved with the Civitan Club. I was the president of the Civitan Club, and what we did was raise money every year for the mentally retarded children, mentally handicapped, I think is the word they use now, but we bought them new equipment for their playground and other things that they needed in the school. And oftentimes, some of the state legislatures, when they were tight on their budgets, would cut back on money for these kids. I couldn't believe it. So a bunch of us went to Lansing, Michigan, our capital, and talked to the people down there, and sure enough, they changed that, and they gave money again to these kids after they had cut it out of their budget. So that was good, and that's always a fun thing to do. And I was a Little League coach. All of our kids were Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts, and that was always a good thing too. And so I don't know. There's other things there that I just can't think of right now.
Well, you've had a lot of success in the past, so that's great to hear you're able to make those changes. And yeah, Arthur Vandenberg is a legend. One of only 2 Space Force bases is named after him as well. So Vandenberg Space Force Base in California was, of course, after Arthur Vandenberg. Yeah. You've met some amazing people in your life. You've hobnobbed with some pretty famous people. Can you tell any colorful stories about some of the more famous people that people might know, where you had an opportunity to have a funny interaction?
Yeah. I was in LaGuardia Airport in New York City. I was on the plane. I'd always flown coach, but for some reason the lady said that coach section was full going to Grand Rapids, and so she put me up front in the first class, and I was reading, as I would usually do, just sitting on the plane, and all of a sudden I heard all this commotion. And there was Muhammad Ali with his entourage. And,
oh, my gosh.
So he sat right across the aisle from me. I didn't bother him because I knew he had a fight in Puerto Rico the night before, and tired and so on.
Was he a little beat up, too?
Not really.
Sure. He knew how to,
Yeah. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
That's the one. Yep.
I'll get you in 3.
That's right, yeah. He had the best phrases.
He never got hurt much. So anyway, he started talking to me, and I talked back to him, and we discussed some things. I wound up with an autograph for my son and so forth, but he was very mild-mannered, very polite, extremely polite, and soft-spoken. And of course, I think all this talk that he does is for the press and the media, And of course, I was at a card show in Chicago one time, and I had purchased from Sports Illustrated a big picture of Joe DiMaggio swinging, which is that famous swing of his, and it was autographed, and it was Joe DiMaggio, the Yankee Clipper, and I think at one point I told some kids that I had mowed the lawn, go in the house and make yourself at home, and get in the refrigerator and get some water or whatever you want. I think somebody stole that picture. In fact, I know they did. I can't pin it on anybody, but it was gone. And I told Joe DiMaggio that when I got into this line for autographs. And I said, you signed Joe DiMaggio, Yankee Clipper, on this picture. And 2 great big guys that didn't have necks were on either side of his bodyguards. And the one guy said, he doesn't do Clipper anymore. You don't tell DiMaggio what to do. He looked at me and smiled and winked, and he put Yankee Clipper on there after his signature. And so that was fun. In New York one time, I had Bob there, my son, and we saw Al Kaline go into the Hall of Fame, and we were at the airport waiting to get a flight, and Stan Musial and his wife were sitting very close to us at the airport, and I went over to the book stand just to look around and see what they had in the magazines and stuff, and I noticed a magazine there that said that the top 50 athletes of the century, and there was Musial on that list. Holy mackerel! So I bought the book, or bought the magazine for him, took it over to him and gave it to him. And Mrs. Musial would, oh my God, Stan, that's just fantastic. You know, they were just so excited about that. And he gave me 2 balls he signed, one for my son and one for myself. And then Al Kaline was in the next row there, and he gave us a ball to sign and so forth. And so those are the kind of people that, you know, I've met President Bush, and I've met several presidents. We had a Republican party that was quite active in Kent County, because that was the home of President Ford, of course. So I met several people like that. And I met Henry Kissinger one time, and he was all upset because the Secret Service made him walk down 4 flights of stairs. They didn't want him on an elevator. I don't know why, but Secret Service are very powerful people, more so than most people think. They can take over the country, actually. I think the way they're handling things. I had a client, it was Don Amici, who was in the movies, and he was a good client friend, and a peach of a guy. Ann Landers, the lady that wrote that, all the articles in the paper, she was a client of ours. Her name was Eppie Lederer. Her sister still writes, I think, for the newspaper.
It's Dear Abby, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Dear Abby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we had clients. You know, the ambassador to Austria, the ambassador to Italy.
That was Peter Secchia, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so just a lot of interesting people.
Yeah. I'm really glad you knew him. So when I was in Italy with my mom, we were robbed in Rome. I don't know if you remember this story.
I don't know that. I didn't remember that.
So both of us were sitting down in Rome. I don't remember exactly where. And someone stole a fanny pack that my mom had on that had all of our passports, all of our money, everything. And so we didn't know what to do. And so you happened to know Mr. Secchia, gave him a call, helped us. I don't know what we would have done otherwise. So I'm really glad you knew him. That made our life a lot easier.
Did she get it back?
We never got any of it back. No, it was, that was gone. But the issue was we might have been stuck in Italy for who knows how long without a passport. It could have been really tough.
Oh boy!
But he really helped us out with that situation. So
yeah,
that was a good guy to know. So we talked a lot about baseball. You have a great relationship with baseball. Talk to me a little bit about how you got started playing baseball, how you played in college, all through school, maybe some interesting stories about your baseball career.
Well, when I was a little boy, I played baseball every day that I could, and on the weekends and things like that. All my friends, we all played baseball. And then on Saturday mornings, we'd go to the movies. They had special prices for kids, and usually there was a Western. And the Western movies were all the same. Somebody was either going to take over the land, the railroad was coming through there, somebody was going to rob the stage, or somebody's going to rob the bank. The movies were all about the same. So anyway, we played baseball most all the time, all summer long. And somehow I hit about 405 or something like that in high school, and I got a baseball scholarship to Michigan State. And I thought, boy, was I just on top of the world. I couldn't believe that, And so I got a letter from the baseball coach, and then a letter from the president, John Hanna of Michigan State. And I thought, whoa, boy, I'm in the clover now. So I got down there, and on my freshman year, we were on the field and catching balls and so on. I played center field. And I used to be fairly fast when I was a kid. I don't know how this happened, but I'd go from first base around the bases back home in about 28 seconds. So I was pretty fast, and that's why I played center field. Well, I didn't play very much. I saw these big kids come in. Where in the hell are these guys from? Texas and California and Florida and stuff. And they played baseball, of course, year-round. But a lot of these guys played baseball on what they call the American Legion teams. They played every day during the summer, and they were really good. During the summer, I worked on the railroad section gangs and stuff like that to get money. So I didn't play nearly as much as these guys did. And we're talking people in here like Kurt Gibson and other people, big kids, and
Like almost as big as me, right?
that's right. And so I sat on the bench a lot. Let's put it that way. got a lot of slivers.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
there you
I
go.
should have played in baseball if I could make in a smaller school. But the Big Ten, I really learned was it's a phenomenal competitive situation in the Big Ten for football, baseball, basketball, and 3 of the kids on the baseball team went on to the major leagues.
Oh wow, so you had quite a
Yeah,
team.
so that's why I sat on the bench a lot.
But you got to meet them and you got to play. So
Yeah,
that's
and
cool.
they gave me a 4-year scholarship, which was really nice, even though I didn't play. So that was really nice.
That was worth it. You got your degree.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of those summer jobs. You've told me some amazing stories about working on the railroad. What railroad did you work on, and what connections were made with the pieces that you built?
Well, I was in Grand Rapids at the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. And as you know, railroads have to be repaired and maintained from time to time. And there's what they call fissures or air pockets in the rails. And the Fisher car, the Sperry car rather, comes along and they belch yellow paint on rails that need to be repaired. And so these rails have to be out of there. But at first, because before you take a rail off, you have to pull the railroad spikes and pull the plate from under it, and then you have to have these great big equipment. These, I don't know what you even call these things, but we used to pull those rails off of the track, and then put a new rail in there, and then put new spikes and new rail plates and so forth, and also tamp it down with new gravel to make it even again. So that's what I did one summer, and boy, I'll tell you, from 7 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon, 20 minutes for lunch, and you would pray for a tree to appear somewhere so that you could have some shade. And I remember this one guy. We called him Brother Ed, and some of his friends called him Bread. They got into bread. They called him Bread. So anyway. His wife would pack him this magnificent lunch. She'd have 2 or 3 sandwiches in there, grapes and a banana. And what he did was make a mistake. He found a tree, sat under the tree, and then took his shoes off to be comfortable, of course. And by the time that he screwed around doing that, they would say, "Okay, let's get back." And he didn't get his lunch half the time.
Poor guy.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yep.
But the foreman didn't fool around. There was one guy I remember walked over to this milk delivery truck, and he gave the guy a quarter or 50 cents or whatever. And he had this bottle of chocolate milk, and he was swilling that down. And the foreman went over there and grabbed it, threw it down on the ground. He said, "This is a federal job," and so forth. Blah blah blah. Can't do that, So anyway, it was hard work, very hard work, and I was pretty tired at the end of the day. But it taught me a lot of things. What you get out of something, what you put into it, and you really. Once you make a commitment to work hard, you got to help everybody out, and we all have to work together as a team, which we did. But boy, oh boy, there was one guy that had a great big sledgehammer, and when the cement truck dumped their load into the monsters, we call it was a huge cement mixer. It added water and made cement out of it, made concrete out of it. And so anyway, he had this this great big sledgehammer, and he hit the bottom of the truck to get all the loose cement out of there. And it was not a good job. He had they finally gave him some kind of a mask that he wore. His name was John Wilkes. He was a all-state football player, and he died in 6 or 7 years after that because of all that stuff that was in his lungs.
Awful. Wow.
Now they protect workers,
Yeah.
but he just wasn't protected.
Well, that's one area where we glorify the past and say everything was, better, and in some ways things are better now.
Oh yeah,
We
that's
definitely
right.
are more careful.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
So you had some better jobs. Speaking of throughout college, the one I remember was you were a waiter in one of the sororities somehow, right? Wasn't that your? You got a? I don't know how you swindled that. I want to hear the story behind this.
Yeah, that's right. I did that, and
so how'd you get the job? Do you remember?
You just go to and apply. I had two roommates. My first and second year of college and lived off campus, and then my third year, my junior and senior years, I moved into the Phi Delta Theta fraternity house. But we lived off campus, and one of my roommates was John Colvin, who was an all-state tackle for East High School, and the other one was a very unusual guy. His name was Jumpin' Joe Savoldi Jr., and we asked about his dad, and he told us, and so on. And his father was an All-American running back for Notre Dame. And also he was an All-Pro running back for the Chicago Bears. Then he was the world's heavyweight wrestling champion. This is Joe Savoldi. Look him up. Google him, and this guy was amazing.
Okay.
He spoke 5 or 6 languages. So during World War II, they dropped him behind the lines in Germany to spy and so on. And then he started an insurance company, on and on and on. This guy was fantastic. And Jumpin' Jr., our roommate, was a heck of a nice guy. Just, you got to love him. But he didn't have the drive. He said, he probably thought to himself, how am I going to follow something like that?
Yeah.
And so he sometimes would come home at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning with a stock of about 50 bananas, and maybe he'd have a tray of chocolate donuts. Where in the heck has this guy been, Well, he'd go out drinking, and he was wild. The guy was wild. And he had a scholarship at Michigan State for track, football, and basketball, all 3. So the coaches got together, and they decided, okay, let's train him for the Olympics, which they did. And because he could do, and he used to come home with ribbons and stuff, and he'd get first in the high hurdles, first in the low hurdles, first in the javelin or whatever they had, he was a great athlete, but he just gave up. He didn't want to do that anymore. And he became a car salesman out in California, sold Chryslers, and then he died fairly early. But I thought, what a waste, all that talent that he had. So anyway, that was one of my roommates.
Yeah. So, and I love the names. They're so colorful.
Yeah.
I think that's a lost art.
Yeah.
That we just call each other Bob and Dustin. It's you should be Jumpin' Bob, or
yeah.
Railroad Section Gang Bob, or did you have any funny nicknames when you were younger? Or were you always just Bob?
I can't think of any.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was your friends that had the crazy names.
Yeah. Right. Just got a simple little name. I guess they stuck with that.
There you go. Easy peasy. Yeah, it's a palindrome, which is always nice. Just back and forth the same.
Yeah.
So you had this job in the sorority that I wanted to ask about. Is that where you met my grandmother, or was that from a different set of circumstances?
Yes, that's where I met her. It was in the Alpha Gamma sorority house, and that's where I met her. Yeah.
And was there a story behind how you met? Was there a friend that set you up? Were you cleaning her plates? What was the what was the setup?
Yeah, I was doing that, just being a waiter over there. And she asked me out. She said, "Would you like to go to the autumn ball or the harvest ball or something like that?" And so the rest is history.
So she asked you out. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Which was kind of unusual at the time that she was doing that. That's really cool. So you went to the ball. Were you a dancer, or were you kind of a shy guy?
Oh, I dance, and nothing special.
Yeah. That's so culturally, was it normal for men to dance when you were growing up, or was that something that you kind of said, oh, we typically don't do that?
Kind of for sissies.
Yeah, and I guess that doesn't change much, unfortunately, which is a shame, because it's really fun, and we just.
And ironically, I love movies about Fred Astaire, for example. What a great dancer that guy was,
Yeah, he had a whole system. And for people who don't know, tell us a little bit about Fred Astaire and what he did and what he meant.
Oh, all I know is that he was a perfectionist. As much as you can be a perfectionist, everything had to be right. And these gals that danced with him just, okay, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. So
Yeah.
he was a real perfectionist, but just a phenomenal entertainer. And Gene Kelly was not far behind. He was another one that was a great entertainer, great dancer.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So you graduated from college. You plan to go to law school. And then I think the joke you've said is that your daughter Heidi is your law degree, right?
Oh, yeah. I finished my first year, and then Heidi came along, and I thought, oh, boy. And I wanted, when my dad died, some people had told me, some of his friends had said, you ought to go to law school. It's better than an MBA. I don't know who told me that, but it's kind of stuck in my mind. Because when you go to law school, you learn a lot about all kinds of different businesses and so on. Mm-hmm. And it gives you a broad scope of information, knowledge about a lot of different industries and so forth. So, it's just a liberal education. And so I took economics, history, philosophy, psychology, but my major was economics. But I took all this other stuff, which is a true liberal education,
Yeah.
And that's kind of a foundation to catapult you into a lot of different areas. And so I was told at law school, too, that's the kind of a background that we really prefer. Although there's a lot of good lawyers that have been engineers, which is another very good discipline,
So there's been a lot of talk about, liberal arts isn't worth it. You shouldn't go to college, or if you do, it should only be for sciences. Talk to me about why it was beneficial for you to get a liberal arts degree and what you learned that was really special and how it affected you and changed your life.
Yeah, what the law school people say is that if you have a liberal background, you have all this information from various things. That's good. That's a good preparation for law school, because when you study the law, there are so many different things that you're studying. You're studying about the dairy industry and the railroad industry and the airline industry and you name it. And so they think that with a broad background like that will prepare you better than being, from a singular type of an approach. You've got a broad approach.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
okay.
I think so. Yeah,
kind of helps teach you how to think.
Yeah.
So you did 1 year of law school at Ohio State, had your first baby, and so it made it hard to finish. And so what was your next career path? Where did you go from there?
Well, I went to work for a company called Knauer, MacArthur and Company. He was a Fidel, and he found out that I was going to look for a job, and so he offered me a job. Knauer MacArthur was the largest underwriter in Michigan for municipal bonds. And so I took that job, and I sold municipal bonds to wealthy people and to banks, and that was what I did. Then Merrill Lynch was down the hall in our building, and the manager of Merrill Lynch knew that I was out there hustling and working hard and making a lot of sales. And so he approached me for lunch one day, and I didn't know what to do. I was really kind of mixed up about my thoughts about this, but he offered me a job of being their municipal bond manager and stockbroker, so I could do stocks, commodities, anything I wanted to do. And he raised my salary quite a bit, which I could use. So I had a talk with the man at Knauer MacArthur and Company, and he wasn't happy about it. And he said, well, the only thing I can say is, as a Fidel, you're my fraternity brother. He said, all I can say is good luck. And he said, I'd probably do the same thing, even though we hate to lose you. We've trained you, and, you just hate to lose somebody. So I went to work for Merrill Lynch, and I worked very hard for Merrill Lynch. I read somewhere after my first year there where Ford Motor Company was the third largest buyer of municipal bonds in the world. And I thought, holy mackerel. And I asked our manager in Grand Rapids if he would kindly contact the manager in Detroit. and see if we could, call on him. And I didn't know. What do I know, He called him, and the manager in Detroit said, he just laughed. He said, hey, they got hot wires to Solomon Brothers, Lehman Brothers, and so on. They don't even talk to us here in Detroit. So, have at it. So, as naive as I must down there, and I met John Bill Blood, Sagan, Bill Blood, handled all Ford Motor, and they were very nice. They were very nice. They just listened carefully to what I had to say. Developed a program. We when we buy municipal bonds, we're either book runner or we have access to more volume and offer more size. And I said, well, whenever we're the book runner, I would call them, but I don't know what would be their emphasis and what they would never want, and what they never want. They don't want to buy down. They don't buy down. They want to buy North Carolina. They want to buy Carolina. They want to buy Arizona. So. We had a great conversation. Went on. Then we went on dining room for corporate dining room. And the guy said, "If I were you, I'd get a hamburger." I said, "Why is that?" Henry Ford. Well, that guy right over there. Henry Ford over there.
Wow.
Wow. He ordered chef filet mignon. Make the hamburger. They were. So 2 or 3 weeks later, an issue came up. North Carolina school bond or something like that. And I called him, and I said, we get us $25 million. Whoa, man! I was excited as a kid. Got that order filled, and so on. 3 weeks after that, we had some issue for $20 million for dough. This is fantastic. So, unfortunately, about a week after that, the Detroit manager had the New York manager on the phone. He got the Detroit manager on the phone. Listen, there's some kid up there. We don't know this business going on. We don't know that business going on. That business belongs to Detroit. That's our Harry. I got Harry from New York on the phone behind New York. He's behind. So they took the account away from me. And then I started left business. I said that's not business. I said that doesn't make sense to me at all. That doesn't make sense to me at all. How discouraging would that take that away from some young kid that all it just happened to work. It just happened to work. It's not genius or rocket science. It's just rocket science. I wanted to make sure that I had something available for them, and I didn't want to waste their time. I didn't want to waste their time making a lot of phone calls. So I started my own business. Burnham Company. A lot of my clients came with me, and they were happy.
And now, what year was that you started? 1969. So you've owned your own business since 1969. There are not a lot of people. There are not a lot of people. How old were you? How old were you when you started the business?
Well, I don't know. 1969. Born in 1934.
So you were about mid-30s. Yeah. Wow.
So
they may have done you a favor. So they may have done you a favor by stabbing and giving you the impetus. Because I mean, who knows? You might still be working. You might still be working.
And then I went out and I worked really hard. Got counties, cities, and banks. 31 banks that I managed portfolios for. 3 or 4 law firms. A lot of charitable organizations, like Hope College and Aquinas College, things like that. So I was very blessed. To work hard. You just have to work hard. That's all there is to it. And you have to just kind of select the right investments.
So can you think of a time? Of a did some research that you felt like you really had some knowledge. I've done the analysis. Company that has no one else has access to. Can you think of a time? Anytime. Can you think of a time? Anytime. I know this is a company that's worked out really well for me. really well for. You hit like 10x. Is there an example you can give me?
More recently has been weight loss people. We got into them. Those guys got into Eli and Novo Nordisk real early. Those have gone up really substantially. I think you have to look at trends. I guess it. J.C. Penney, they just sold their last crystal ball. You know, they can't use those anymore. You just have to be as clairvoyant and possible, and do your homework, and just look out and see what right now, for example, our country's going to need a lot of energy. For not just air conditioning, manufacturing, and data centers, so we can't afford to run out of energy. So I think nuclear energy is going to be a major role because of CO2 from nuclear waste. But other than that, clean, growing area. You just have to look out and see what we need when we first start buying. Lilly, and then subsequently the Danish company. You look around and it's kind of a touchy thing to talk about. I understand that about 30% of Americans allegedly 40% more are overweight. You know, that's not rocket science. That's not rocket science. Weight pills even on the market yet. They weren't even on the market yet. Lilly on that basis that there's a definite society for that sort of thing. So, you just do that with a lot of other things. Artificial intelligence, that will find its way to areas healthcare and manufacturing, education. We own Microsoft and some other AI companies. You just look out and see what where we head, what do we need as a country. See if you can't develop investment that will satisfy them. That's just basically what it is. Predict the future, which is predictions are hard to make. Predictions are hard to make,
Exactly. So part of your investing strategy is you consistently bet on American dynamism. It's been the American century. I mean, it's in terms of innovation, things going well for the economy. Was there a time, say during stagflation, you felt like you had to invest defensively, or invest offensively, or consistently bet on America?
Yeah, good question, Dustin. Good question, Dustin. I think you have to adjust your sales a little bit, and things are changing. Things are changing. You got to also stick with us well. You have to stick with a specific plan that will not work in certain conditions. So yes, you may add more to treasury bills, preferred short-term bonds, and short-term bonds. We never go out more than 5 year bonds. A lot of banks have gotten into trouble. Silicon Valley Bank going out 30 years. You get 30 years. Maybe 70% of the yield out of 10 years. You do why take that extra risk? Which they did. Scoop in more dollars. And as a result, market went down. Virtually portion of entry. So they took a big bad. So anyway, you just have to. Adjust your sales. Change. There are a few. Kind of a sacred stock. And I think stocks like certain drug company, for example, certainly like a computer-oriented, like Abbott Laboratories, for 100 years, developed for 100 years, they keep coming up with new products all the time. There's a few companies around like that. There's a few companies around like that that just stay with. Thank heavens that you do. Thank heavens that you do, because they're just outstanding.
So is there a stock that held for say over 50 years? What's the longest you think you've held? What's the longest you've held a stock?
Well, Disney. I think Disney and Microsoft are true for a long time. And a lot of them we bought and sold too soon. You look back, I sell that. I bought $200, sold $300. So we got NVIDIA. Yeah, we got NVIDIA. To be fair, amount of it too. That Juan Jensen, their CEO, built a phenomenal company. Built a phenomenal. The chips that they have, the chips that they have, the data centers, data centers, other things. The other day he said that beyond data centers, there's going to be AI hubs in corporations that will be huge. That will be huge users of cells. So that's one that that's hanging on to, and it's just an outstanding stock.
Yeah, and it sounds like excitement that I hear whenever we talk about the future is going. I think that's a big part of what's going. I think that's a big part of what. So for someone who's not interested, for someone not interested in stocks, what advice would you give? What advice would you give other people who are to keep their brain young, to keep their brain young, interested in life, sharp, interested in life?
I think that the investment field is one of what they can do is Warren Buffett's partner just died. And Warren Buffett, I guess, around 93. So you can do this as long as you're willing to do it. Okay, your health is okay. So you got your health. Got to take care of your health. And I think this is an area where it's a lot better to do crossword. It's a lot better to do crossword. You learn a lot. You're always learning a lot. You're always having a purpose, and you have a purpose in your life. You got to have a purpose. I think without a purpose, you can't kind of lose. So I think a lot of people just kind of give up. Maybe they just don't have the energy. They just don't have the energy. They don't have the energy, the desire to enjoy something hobby like this. But I do know some people that are follow the market. They just follow the market. Just love it. Really enjoy it. Really enjoy it.
So here's a tough question for you. And so here's a tough question for you. Has it changed since you were younger? Has it changed? You have a North Star. Do you have a North Star remain your purpose throughout your life?
I think the North Star. I think the North Star for me is just nothing more. Find something that you enjoy doing. Something that you love to do. Day in your life. You don't work a day in your life. So that purpose. So that purpose is to employ whatever skills that I have, create a better world, create better worlds out there on the other side of my service. Do a good job and just do a good job and enjoy the work. Enjoy the work. It's different every day. Every day. The market's always new products. Always products coming along. That's good. Because you're studying about new kinds of companies, things like that. We're studying the biotechnology industry. Careful there. We got to be careful there until the FDA actually approves something. A lot of things can go wrong. Certainly in those areas. In CRISPR technologies, the reason they've invented a new way to slice DNA, make a protein, create targets, protein targeted to go after cancer cell grows. Heat destroys cancer cells, destroy that good cells around good cells around us that don't need chemotherapy. And that's
I like
just
that analogy. I haven't heard that analogy. I haven't heard that before.
Well,
That's really cool.
Well, it's the future because DNA technology is just when everyone's DNA is a different screen and identifies a lot of variables considered before. So people like that, they're coming down the road, they're coming down the road.
Exciting stuff. So exciting stuff. We talk about the future a lot. We talk about the future a lot, and that's a big part of investing strategy. Not boring stuff. Investing in boring stuff. Exciting, most exciting, newest. Is that part of what helps? Is that part of what helps you? I meet a lot of older men. I meet a lot of progeny, especially. The world's all going to crap. The world's all going to crap. It's all going to that. Where do you see the world? Where do you think we have a lot of hope and optimism? We have a lot of optimism. It's all going to crap. It's all going to crap. It's all it's all
I think that's a great question. I think that's a great question. A lot of people don't know. I think the problem is everything in life works in cycles. I hope that we're at a period where there's some problems in our society, and we have some people that are smart enough to identify those changes and make those changes. My feeling is that great leaders don't come along that often. And the problem is, a lot of politicians leaders are not great leaders. They're not the leaders that we need. So there's a problem right there. Should we have Georgetown University program to train states and whatnot? I don't know that anybody's rushing us. I think we really need to train some great leaders to be great leaders. And a leader has the heart of a servant leader. And I don't think a lot of the politicians have job for them and think it's a job for them, and so they want to keep it. So they're concerned more on their own welfare, on serving people. So that's something. That's something that I say a problem. Without great leaders, we really need to make some changes.
Who was? It doesn't have to be a president. It doesn't have to be a president. Who was the last great leader? Who in your mind you say, okay? Who in your mind that was a leader right there? That was a leader right there. That's the kind of person.
Well, ironically, I think it was not Bush or Obama, anybody like that. They were just okay presidents. But I think that Ronald Reagan, from all movie stars, somehow had a feel that the country needed. He had some great leadership skills. A lot of Democrats and Republicans. Everybody seemed to like that guy. He was very likable. A lot of the Democrats got along with him. Friends of O'Neill. Go play golf together. Tip was, the leader of the house. It's just, we've got to have somebody. We've got to have somebody look at some things and look at some things and see where the solutions lie. I just don't know that we have. I just don't know that we have kind of got a guy now that wants to spend money, wants to spend money like. And what about kids? What about their kids, grandchildren? They're going to have to face this. They're going to have to face this enormous debt. They just don't seem to pay much attention to good things to people and be realistic to people and be real. I think in the future, America, of course, has got great entrepreneurs, we've got hard workers, we've got we've got liberty, freedom, freedom, democratic, democratic public really works. Like Benjamin Franklin said to this lady after the convention, what have we got? What have we got? He said, we've got a republic if you control.
Yes. Yeah, I love that quote. Yeah, I love that quote.
And I think we've got to really, this is what we've got to really line up and do. Line up and give it top priority to preserve our great experiment in America. Yeah, we've got wars. Yeah, we've got wars. So does everybody. But so does everybody. In this country, you don't have to wear a tent. You don't have to wear a tent. A whole lady, a hole, so you see, and things like that. Things like that. Do what you want. You're free to do what you want. I don't know how many, how many entrepreneurs that you and I both know, that are prominent Americans, from India, China, or wherever. China over here, they had the freedom. Over here, they had the freedom. They did it. They wanted to do it. They did it successful, and they were very successful. So I am optimistic about 50 years from now. If things go according to some sensible plan. We don't have a dictator. We don't have major war. I'd love to see nuclear bombs. I'd love to see nuclear bombs all put trash bureau. A lot of people would. That's scary. That's scary to happen. That would raise civilization. So let's hope these guys. And I don't understand. Like China, Kim in North Korea, Kim in North Korea. Wouldn't they rather go down as a beloved leader, as a beloved Hitler type, rather than everybody hates. I just don't understand. I just don't understand that.
Yeah, they might be more Machiavellian. They might be more Machiavellian. Said it's better to fear. Fortunately, there are people that think that way. Power corrupts. Power corrupts. There are some dark forces. So talking about leadership. So talking about what can we as dads, what can we as dads take from your generation to be great leaders, teach our kids what they need to do to be successful, what they need to do successful. What do you see that's lacking? What do you see that's lacking that you think we can do a better job?
Probably to think about others. Think about others. What can you do to serve? What can you do to help others? What can you do to help others? Kind of like a nurse. Kind of like a nurse. She goes to work in a hospital. I think we have to think along those kinds of lines. And to forget power, and forget ourselves, and serve others. And I think people out there, there's some people out there that do that. Should be able to do that. That's what we really need. That's what we really need. That kind of an attitude.
Ask not what your country can do for you.
That's it.
Yeah, I think that was a really meaningful phrase. I think that was a really meaningful phrase. Really resonated, and I wonder if it does today. I think in some ways our country, especially has gone on individualistic, what can I get out of the kind of direction. What do you think? What do you think? Thinking like aside from thinking about doing our best, are there any actionable steps? Are there any actionable steps that'll help take us more in that direction? Get off this path that we're on.
Well, we're fortunate enough to hire right people in Congress. That's where the power is. That's where the power is. In the White House and Congress. In the White House and Congress. So we think along that line. Think along that line. I think so. I'm impressed by this lady, Tulsi Gabbard, who was a lieutenant in the Navy, I guess it is, and she's thinking along that. She's thinking along that. I'm sure that other people, are out there to do that. But out there, Dustin, to be able to find these people is
and it's a needle in a haystack. Yeah, and it's a needle in a haystack.
It is. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Any other closing thoughts you'd like to leave us with before we sign off?
Well, not really. I just think that quite a few things, like kids and grandchildren, do your best, and do the right thing, and always show other people you care. Show other people you care. That's kind of a little compository. philosophy.
I love it. Excellent. I love it. Well, Grandpa, thank you so much. Well, Grandpa, thank you so much for joining me. This is a real pleasure. Glad we got to do it. I think we distilled a lot of wisdom. We distilled a lot of wisdom. You did had a lot of fun. I hope you did as well.
Yeah, very much.
Good. Yeah. All right. Good.
Dads, this has been another episode.
Dads, this has been another episode
of
the
the
President Podcast.
Podcast.
Let's get climbing. So let's get climbing.